Hi, it's me, Dr. KT, and welcome to ODDDUCKSCIENCE. And if you're back, you're ready for part two of what? We are debunking and debasing, getting rid of the idea of the crack baby myth. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, please go back and listen for the video on crack myth, the crack baby myth. And it's also on my YouTube channel, ODDDUCKSCIENCE. All right, let's get into it. The last time we talked about Dr. Ira Chasnoff and his research. And he had a group of 23 women who were pregnant and used cocaine during their pregnancy. Now, a scientist stepped to the scene, Dr. Claire Coles, and I'm so glad that she did, because she did what all great scientists do. She questioned. So she looked at his research and she found some very interesting things. She found some variables that were not accounted for. She found that, one, the women were not receiving adequate prenatal care. Two, they were in very abusive environments. And number three, she found that the women were not only taking cocaine, but they were also drinking alcohol during pregnancy, smoking marijuana during pregnancy, and they were also smoking tobacco. They had 3 different substances going along with cocaine. Now, pit stop. Let's talk about variables. In science, you want to make sure that you control the scenario and you only have one variable. So in this case, the only variable should have been that the mothers were using cocaine. I just named 3 additional, so that's gonna throw some things off. And rightfully so, this caused Dr. Claire Coles to say, how can we make such a grand conclusion and come up with this entire idea of a crack baby and how they behave and that their behavior is so depressed and, all of these things are happening and they're gonna be detrimental to society when we didn't even account for these variables. So what did she do? What any other great scientist would do. She created an experiment to see what she could find out. And 2 astounding things came from her research. What was found? The first one was you could not inherit an addiction of cocaine and pass it from mother to child. That was the first thing she found. Second thing she found, that cocaine or crack, either one, and we talked about the differences of those, cocaine or crack, did not alter, or there was no direct link between the usage of crack or cocaine and cognitive development or physical development, which means there was no direct link that was saying, hey, this child is going to be impaired mentally, or this child is going to be impaired physically. Now, I'm gonna give pause for that. And the reason I'm going to give pause for it is because in the last video, we talked about how much legislation was created based upon this myth. What we saw was that women were being tried and accused, and policies were written about them being drug dealers to their unborn child. They were simply substance abusers who needed help, who needed the government to step in. And the government stepped in another way, and it wasn't helpful at all. Now, Dr. Claire Cole's data was not to say it's okay to use cocaine or crack during your pregnancy. What she was saying is we can't make this grand conclusion off of this information with Dr. Chasnoff, who said, he did say that his study was preliminary results. You can't base it off of that. And what she found was none of that was true. Now, later on, another group of scientists, they went back and looked directly at Dr. Chasnoff's data, and they control for the variables. What that means is they brought them into consideration. They brought them into the equation. They did not ignore them. And what they found is there was no statistically significant piece or link that showed that cocaine or crack would impair or affect the behavior of an infant. Okay? Now, I know you're like, Dr. KT, what am I supposed to do with all this information? I'm glad that you asked. Now, we have to go through the 3 Ds. First one, decode. What do we find out? We talked about variables, something that was not accounted for. We had some extra ones, because remember, in any great science experiment, you're gonna have one variable and everything else is gonna remain constant or be the same. we found that there were 3 additional ones other than cocaine. There was other substance abuse, there was inadequate prenatal care, and then there was an unstable, abusive environment, okay? Next D, diversify. How does that affect? Oh my goodness, we're still seeing the effects of it. Think about the Anti-Drug Abuse Bill of 1986 and how we're still dealing with mandatory minimums and what that did to a generation as far as separating kids from their parents and breaking up families. We did see that there was some change in the policy in around 2010, but rather than having a ratio of maybe 100 to 1 where you would have 500 grams to 5 grams, it's 18 to 1. It's still an inequality to this day, and that's a whole nother video. I'll leave that to more of my policy-led friends. The last D, dazzle. How do I dazzle this? By being intellectually curious. Whenever you read an article, whenever you hear something on the news, please dig into it. And some of you say, oh, Dr. KT, we don't have time. Yes, you do. You do have time, because if you're scrolling, you have time to fact check some things, especially when these things are affecting your community. It's affecting people that look like me, affecting people that look like you. It's our responsibility to make sure we give voices to people who do not have them. I read this amazing quote today that said, information is a privilege. It really is. So the information I'm giving you is a privilege. So it shouldn't just stay with you. You should share it to everyone else around you. Okay? I hope you learned something today. Until next time, have a glorious day.